folks, here we are. The show is about to begin. Whoops, I guess I had the button held down there for a sec. Boy, folks, it's been forever since I've been in the studio. How the heck are ya? Sam Whitfield here. This is the Whitfield Analysis on Next Gen Conservative Radio and on Junior Factor Nation Radio. And speaking of Junior Factor Nation and Next Gen Conservative Radio, as you've heard by now, probably, I announced that Jason and I are now forming a partnership between Next Gen Conservative and Junior Factor Nation. That essentially, we're also kind of merging. We're not going to change the titles of either company. Next Gen Conservative is still going to be like Next Gen Conservative, and Junior Factor Nation is still going to be Junior Factor Nation, but we're going to kind of combine our ideas together now, and we'll kind of share the auto bumpers, the promotional bumpers for both things, and I put Jason in. Next Gen Conservative is my organization, and it's my radio network, and originally I started it off with two of my very close friends, Trevor Johnson and Gregory Blackie. Actually, Trevor and I started it, and then Gregory came on about a year later. But I've explained this before, but Trevor and Greg both decided to go their own ways, and we had a bit of a falling out, which I don't want to get into on this program, folks. It's really it happened over 6 months ago now, and it really doesn't matter anymore. But they gave me control of the company since it was my idea to begin with. And so I'd been I'd been looking for someone to be my right hand and my second in command over there. And long story short, I'd been working with Jason for a while. And on his episode 2 weeks ago, where he talked about me and what I meant to him and how the entire staff meant, that was it for me. Jason and I have been chatting a lot lately on Facebook, and we've become really good friends. And he and I share the same ideology, both politically, but also as business leaders too. And I know that most of you tune into the Whitfield Analysis, for the radio show portion, but there's also like a major there's an element of business to the talk radio industry too. I mean, there is political stuff, but there's also the business element of things. By the way, hello, Michael James. I'm glad you're listening. in the chat room. I'm going to start as a motivator to get people to start participating in the chat room. I'm going to be uh, mentioning my listeners who are in the chat whenever I see them. So hello, Michael. Can you hear me? I got a new audio setup too, and I want to know if you can hear me. Uh, and oh, what you mean? Mrs. Whitfield invited you? No, I'm just kidding. I'm not married, not yet. I don't even have a girlfriend. Anyway, enough shenanigans with the intros. Boy, it's been 2 weeks since I've been in the studio, and it's been 2 weeks since I've been in the studio, and quite honestly, folks, I apologize. Well, no, it's only been a week, but it feels more like 2 weeks. Last week I apologize. I did not have a show, and I did not have time to pre-record a show. The reason I was out of studio last week was because last weekend I had my Eagle Scout ceremony, and I am an Eagle Scout now, officially. I achieved the highest rank in Boy Scouts. And last weekend though, everything was really kind of complex. Everything was kind of spinning around, and I had to help my mom. She did most of the work on my court of honor, which is like the big ceremony and celebration where an Eagle Scout gets their Eagle Award, and the parents have to plan out. And it's a very time-consuming activity. And actually, they needed my laptop in order to put like some stuff on there, like a slideshow and whatnot. And so my equipment that I usually use for the show was being used for something else. So I couldn't even do it. I thought about doing the show off my iPad, but there's no way for me to access my audio soundbite roster from my iPad, which is what I needed last week because I have a whole slew of audio. I have a whole slew of audio sound bites. Now, folks, one other announcement. Today is my first Saturday show regularly. I talked to Jason, and one of the things I'd like to do, well, one of the things that I'm doing now is, now that I'm out of high school, I am basically committing to my career as a political commentator full time now. And oh, sorry, I had a brain fart. And one of the things, now that I'm out of high school, I want to commit like full time to my political commentary career. And so Monday through Friday now, I'm just doing like a ton of stuff. Like I'm writing and blogging, and I'm just really keeping myself busy now. And I'm trying to get a full time. Uh, I'm trying to get like a full. I'm trying to get like a full time sponsorship, or like a couple time sponsorships that can give me money. Um, so this is like a full time job for me now, folks. I've been serious about my political commentary career ever since I'm 14. Ever since I was 14. But now that I have the ability to now that I have the ability to have more open time, I can plan my schedule. And so Um, Jason and I were talking a couple weeks ago, and I said I'd like to expand my show and do some more episodes. And really, so now I'm broadcasting twice per week, and really the only other time, the only other day besides Sunday that's open in this time slot is Saturday. So now I'm the double shift guy for the weekends. You get to hear me on both Saturday and Sunday. How about that, Michael? Yeah, I know listening to me once a week is hard for some of you liberals out there, but guess what? You're stuck with me both for the entire weekend now. Imagine how horrible that must be for some liberals, huh? Um, Now, today, folks, because I was gone last week, we're also probably going to be doing a 2-hour show. Um, we're also probably going to be doing like a 2-hour show today. So get ready. Um, Hello, Andrew, my good friend. Um, Andrew and I were chatting all night last night, and I was up until 1 a.m. last night, and yet I still feel as hyper as ever. I don't know why. Um, but yeah, so we're going to be doing the show. I'm going to be doing my show on Saturday and Sunday now, which will be exciting. Today's going to be a 2-hour show, as I mentioned, and enough of me chit-chatting about the show and whatnot. I'll have some more announcements later in the program, but for right now, I think it's time that we get on to some topics, shall we? Because that's what you're here for, and that's what I'm here for. So let's get right down to it, shall we? All right. So the first topic of the hour is something that not a lot of people, in fact, almost no one is talking about this right now, but it's Occupy Wall Street. And folks, earlier this week, around Monday, I was I was eating lunch in between writing my columns and articles, and I was thinking about this whole IRS thing and the abuse of power that the IRS, is committing by spying on Tea Party groups. And my first thought was, where is Occupy Wall Street? And I'll tell you why I said that, folks. 2 years ago, 2 years ago on my radio show, so 2011, December of 2011, and I realized that lots of people on JFN weren't following me back then, so just bear with me. You can probably go find this archive. You can probably go find this show if you dig back far enough into my Blog Talk Radio archive. I'll try and see if I can find it, and I'll post it on the JFN Facebook page if I can find it. But about 2 years ago on my show, when Occupy Wall Street first showed up, one of the big things that Occupy Wall Street claimed was that, yes, they were against big corporations ripping people off, but Occupy Wall Street also claimed to be a government watchdog group. And of course, I knew that this was absolute, because Occupy Wall Street, folks, they're the Obama cronies. I mean, it's so plain and obvious for me to see that they're just a bunch of who work for Obama, and they're totally in the tank for the left, and anybody who paid attention, anybody who was paying attention to Occupy Wall Street and actually knew what they were doing, knew that from the very beginning. So they said that they were a that they also wanted to be a government watchdog group, besides, a corporation watchdog group. And, they said that a lot of them didn't like Obama either, and, of course they were just saying that to make themselves look, less biased, right? So I proposed a challenge, and I wish I had the audio soundbite of myself, because I know that there are some liberals out there who are going to say, "Oh, Sam, you never really said that. You're just making this up now." But what I said 2 years ago was, I made a challenge to Occupy Wall Street about 2 years ago. I said, are going, if you guys really are a government watchdog group, prove it. And I made a prediction, which I usually don't announce predictions on air because, uh, I just don't like doing that. But when I do announce predictions on air, I'm usually right. I've been right 90% of the time with the predictions that I've made. And what I said, folks, was I said 2 years from now. Now keep in mind, folks, this was December of 2011 when I stated this. So in December of 2011, I said, folks, in 2 years' time, the government is going to there's probably going to be like a massive government scandal. Timothy got now see at the time I thought Timothy Geithner, our Treasury Secretary, was going to get himself in a jam and do something stupid. So I said there's probably going to be some financial scandal with Timothy Geithner, and there's going to be this big financial scam cover up by the government and probably by the IRS. And they're going to try and sweep it under the rug. Now, folks, I was wrong about the Timothy Geithner thing. So my prediction was more or less half right, but I was right about the IRS covering up crap. What I didn't know at the time, what I couldn't predict, what I don't think anybody could predict, was how devastating it would be what they were doing. I mean, these people at the IRS have been targeting Tea Party groups. And now, a couple weeks ago, I played the clips of, Chris Matthews, or no, it was it Chris Matthews? I can't remember. Oh no, it was, crap. Do any of you guys in the chat room know a couple of weeks ago when I was on the IRS rant? Do any of you know who's? Oh, sorry, I just remembered. It was Ed Schultz. I'm sorry, folks. I do have brain moments where. See, that's how long it's been since I've been on radio too. The last radio show I did was the Ed Schultz rant. So it's been quite a while since I've been on live radio. So, and you guys in the chat room are probably laughing at me, right now. Oh, and Andrew, in the chat room, Occupy Wall Street is not dead. And I'll explain how it's not dead in just a sec. But anyway, so we played the clips of Ed Schultz. defending the IRS. And so to relate this back to Occupy Wall Street, I'm kind of scatterbrained today, folks. So pardon me. But relating this back to Occupy Wall Street, I made a challenge to Occupy Wall Street to... I said if Occupy Wall Street is a genuine movement, they will, they will be there to watch the IRS. They will be there to watch the government, and they will, if they're a genuine movement, they will protest the federal government's abuse of power, if they're a legitimate group. And I said, I'm going to keep an eye on Occupy Wall Street. And sure enough, folks, now, Andrew, they're not actually dead. In fact, if you Google Occupy Wall Street, their website is like the first one to pop up in Google. And so I've been watching their websites, I've checked back every single day, and they have not said anything about the IRS wiretaps. I mean, nothing whatsoever. And in fact, a couple of the Occupy Wall Street members, I mean, they haven't come out and said that they're with Occupy, but like a couple of OWS type kids have come out and said that they support the IRS. And so, without further ado, I'd like to play a clip for you. Now, Jason did play this on his show about a week ago. And I know that some of you were here when he played this audio clip. But this is the one where he played this clip, and it was one of the Leadership Institute kids, and he went around with a thank you card to the IRS and tried getting the liberal kids to sign it, just to prove how idiotic they were. And, like, as I was listening to the show, I was going to call in and comment with Jason, but in my mind, these kids sounded exactly like Occupy Wall Street kids to me, folks. So, let's play this clip, and I'm going to probably jump in here a couple times and interrupt it to make, like, comments and whatnot. And trust me, like, I've heard enough Occupy Wall Street talk to know when an occupier is talking. Trust me. So anyway, here's the IRS thank you card, and there are some Occupy Wall Street members in this, I'm pretty sure. So let's take a listen, shall we? Alright, playing audio soundbite number 1. This is the IRS thank you card. This was unbelievable the first time I heard it. Still unbelievable now. Let's take a listen. That's pretty rad, man. That's pretty rad. By the way, folks, I love this, I love, like, the happy, like, I love the happy, like, Sesame Street, like, 2-year-old music that they have. I mean, it's all happy, and it's hippie music, and, and, You know, Andrew, I might go and do that during one of the commercial breaks. I might actually go and look at the Steven Crowder video. But folks, don't you just love that happy music he has? I mean, because that's actually how I've like pictured Occupy Wall Street. Like so not to go on a tangent, but there's this there's this video game called Team Fortress, and it's an online like shooter game, kind of like Call of Duty, where you can where you can play as like a whole bunch of different classes, and one of them is like a flamethrower, and they actually had a YouTube video about this. If you like go into YouTube, not right now obviously because you're listening to my show, but if you go into YouTube later and search Team Fortress 2 Meet the Pyro, it basically shows this video, and what the pyro, you don't know if the pyro is a male or a female, but basically like the pyro is like completely psycho. But the pyro is like killing everyone and beating people up and setting things on fire. But in her mind, she sees like rainbows and uh, you know rainbow grenades and all this like really happy peaceful stuff. But in the meantime, she's causing all this destruction, and that's kind of how I see the Occupy Wall Street movement. Um, yeah, Andrew, the pyro essentially is high, and see, like that's how the Occupy Wall Street mentality is basically. Like, I think a lot of them are high because they think they're doing all this great stuff, but yet they crap on cop cars and they create all this destruction. And so anyway, the happy music in this video just like cracks me up. So let's continue listening to this. Okay, stop for a sec. That woman did say something important. The IRS is doing the wrong thing and the right thing at the same time. Okay, and I'm absolutely sorry, but how do you manage to do those two things at once? It doesn't make any sense to me how you can make the right decision and the wrong decision at the same time. That woman was definitely smoking LSD, but see, folks, like that's the mentality of Occupy Wall Street, and I do want to get serious here for a second. In the Occupy movement, there is no sense of right or wrong. And actually, we're going to be delving into the Occupy movement as a whole here in just a little bit, because I have a feeling that they're going to come back, folks. I really, really do. Well, anyway, let's finish this clip, shall we? You know, really, I want to know where that music came from. I seriously do, because I could use that in like a spoof of something. I think Jimmy Z might know where that music is. Um, well, Andrew, I'm gonna read some of the comments. Andrew says OWS even believes that anyone who steals stuff because they are poor is totally justified and shouldn't be punished. Well, yeah, that's one of the things they believe. There's a lot more. There's a lot more to that, and in fact, this would be a great thing to. You know, I'm gonna take a quick commercial break, and then I'm gonna come back, and we're gonna play actually a clip that kind of explains the Occupy Wall Street mentality. And we've got like a lot more to cover today, folks. So don't go anywhere. This is the Whitfield analysis on Next Gen Conservative Radio. We'll be right back after these messages. Hold on, we'll be right back. It's way too much fun when you're a radio host. I swear to you, folks, this job is way too much fun. I mean, I've it's already been 35 minutes, and I don't feel like I've covered nearly as much as I should. Anyway, folks, welcome back to the program. This is the Whitfield Analysis on Next Gen Conservative Radio and Junior Factor Nation. So glad you're all here to join me today. Now, folks, we've been talking a little about the Occupy Wall Street mentality, and this is actually something that really doesn't have anything to do with what's going on like right now in terms of the IRS, but I do want to get into like a kind of like a side comment about like our generation and why so many kids our age are joining up with Occupy Wall Street, and it's a complete disaster. And no one's really given like the explanation as to why Occupy Wall Street functions the way it does. Up until last year, up until like the end of 2012, Adam Carolla, the in case you don't know who Adam Carolla is, Adam Carolla is a comedian. He was a stand-up comedy who he's done like major television shows, and he's pretty well known. And one of the other things he's pretty well known for is like he was really one of the first guys to start the format of podcasting. Like he wasn't the one who came up with it, but he was one of the first ones to really utilize it. And he began a daily talk show, uh, basically doing like what Jason and I are doing, like having a microphone set up and talking. Now for him it's a lot more complex because he's actually in a studio and it's set up a lot more like a radio program. But Adam's a comedian, and so he comments on like he does comment on politics, but he also comments on like culture, entertainment, you know, other stuff besides politics. And Adam also swears a lot, um, but I don't mind it because being in public high school, I pretty much heard the equal amount of swearing that Adam Carolla does, on a daily basis. So I didn't mind after a while. Now Adam Carolla, he also describes himself as like um, very as like socially liberal but fiscally conservative. So he considers himself like a libertarian. However, I think he's more conservative than he gives himself credit for. And the other thing is, Adam grew up like dirt poor, and the man has a very good work ethic. So, and he had some quite a lot of stuff to say about Occupy Wall Street last year, and he basically, this is the best description ever of how messed up the Occupy movement is and what they're all about. I did find a censored version of this, so let me go ahead and play this. This is Adam Carolla last year uh, on the Occupy Wall Street movement and their mentality. Let's take a listen. Okay, he mentions the trophies, and I will get to the trophy mentality because the trophy mentality, folks, really just. Oh, I get so off about this thing. Really, the trophy mentality, folks, if you want to know, I mean, I just get really. I wish I could draw out my beeps longer instead of having to hit it 2 or 3 times. Anyway, Andrew, if you remember this audio, I actually suggest that you, my friend, go into iTunes and subscribe to Corolla's podcast because even though he swears like a drunken sailor, he is probably one of the most brilliant podcasts I've ever listened to. Even though he's even though he's more liberal on some topics, he's incredibly brilliant. And oh, so this audio runs about like 8-9 minutes long, but you guys are already apparently enjoying this. So I'll shut up and let Adam go on his awesome rant for 7 minutes. And I was almost tempted to upload the uncensored version of this because in my mind, I mean, rarely do I think that profanity actually improves anything, but when we talk about the Occupy Wall Street movement, folks, when it comes to Occupy, I have to bleep myself so many times. And in fact, if I do drop the F bomb today, we'll talk about Occupy because we're going to get into the psychology of Occupy. Please forgive me in advance. Okay, I just get so pissed off about these little assholes. It doesn't make any. I just hate them. And yes, unfortunately, they are still around. But anyway, let Corolla get the ranting started, shall we? So this is awesome. Again, I'm gonna go find the iTunes link for the Adam Carolla show, and I'll copy and paste it in the chat room. Yeah. Anyway, so you guys enjoy this. Hey, I'll call you back later. I've been doing stuff for my shell day today. Yeah, I know. I feel bad I wasn't able to call you. I've just been swamped all day today, so. No, it's fine. I'll call you back probably in about like an hour or so, probably. All right, bye. All right, now I know a lot of you guys in the chat did not like all the swearing so much. Trust me though, I mean, here's one thing too on the note about the swearing. Like I know that some of you are a little more sensitive to that, but I mean, here's the thing: when you after you attended the public school system for 13 years or so, um, you're going to hear that language a lot, especially around middle school and high school. And I'm not saying that I do it a lot, but I do curse, and I curse a lot when Occupy is involved. But I mean, okay, so I don't think that there's if you want to know the Occupy mentality, that right there, censored or uncensored, is probably the best damn explanation of the Occupy movement. By the way, Adam Carolla was also a really good friend of Andrew Breitbart too. Um, so I should have mentioned that beforehand because I know that Andrew is probably super excited about that. Also, go and subscribe to his podcast. Honestly, folks, it's probably the best free podcast besides the Jimmy Z show out there. Which is the best podcast aside from the Junior Factor Nation shows. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but Adam Carolla is like in third place in terms of best podcasts, and then Jimmy Z ranks number 2, and then Junior Factor Nation. All of our shows collectively rank at number 1 since we're awesome that way. But seriously, folks, this Occupy Wall Street, here's Occupy Wall Street is just a movement, but if you want to know, okay, let me go to another commercial break because I'm scatterbrained again like crazy, and I need to take a couple deep breaths and really um as I said, this thing is going to be a 2-hour show today, and we've still got tons of crap to cover. Good God Almighty. I really hope you guys in the chat room don't mind sticking around for a while. So anyway, I'll take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back. Hour number 2 of the Whitfield and Ellis radio show begins now. I'm Sam Whitfield, rocking out to this fabulous riff by Jimmy Z. Yeah, we like rock and roll because we're men here on this program, or at least most of us are, because I know that there are some women, but even the women listening to this program are are manly compared to the Occupy Wall Street movement. Uh, anyway, folks, how are you? So, at the end of the first hour, I played a bit by Adam Carolla on the Occupy Wall Street movement, and basically about the whole trophy mentality thing. And really, I was thinking about this more over the break, but Occupy Wall Street is only one. It's a movement, and it's a movement, yes, but really, this is the combination of what I like to call the trophy generation, of the trophy generation syndrome. I'm not a doctor, but I did come up with this syndrome called the trophy generation syndrome. And what the trophy generation syndrome is, uh, TDG, as I call it, or no, TGS, yeah, TGS, as I call it. What TGS is it's basically this whole mentality of, and I don't really quite know when it started, but like, basically, ever since the like early 90s, society has kind of had this mentality of, oh, well, we can't. I mean, there's really no easy way of how to explain it, but this is the problem with this goes hand in hand with political correctness. I guess from what I've noticed in my lifetime, the easiest way to explain this was, um, the somewhere along the line, like in the early 90s, there was this whole theory that kids needed to. I mean, all of these studies were coming out about children's self-esteem and you know, and about nurturing environments and all that stuff. And ever since I've been born, there's been this whole mentality around the time I was born that everyone is unique and everyone is special and everyone is awesome in their own way. Which that's partially true. I do believe that everyone is special and unique in their own way. However, so the mentality that we've always had, that people are special and unique in their own way. But I guess the way we've looked at that has changed from generation to generation. I mean, we've always kind of thought that, but like, and bear with me, if this analogy doesn't make any sense, I want the chat room people to let me know. But in the 50s, there was the mentality that yes, people are, unique and special in their own way, but they get that way because they work their ass off and they make something of themselves, and that's how you become unique and special. And being unique and special does take, hard work and motivation, and in some instances, it takes talent too. And and basically, that was a mentality in the 50s and like even in the 60s. But then like around the mid 70s, um when the hippie movement came along, remember Woodstock? Woodstock happened late 60s, right? Um Now here's what happened at Woodstock. Woodstock, if you remember correctly, my friends, and Andrew, I do see your theory. I'll read that off a little bit later because I'm speed reading it, and I do think that that it's actually pretty similar, but I'll save that in a little bit. But anyway, so here's my theory. Right, Woodstock um, was all about feeling the love and be loving the one you're with, and oh man, it doesn't really matter if you work hard. Just be, man. Just be. And so here's what happened. The kids who were at Woodstock, all right, the kids who were at Woodstock, they became adults like around the 80s, and like some of these people probably went into the fields of psychology and child studies and whatnot, and they became school board members too, and I mean they got into the facets of society, and so around the early 90s, the late 80s, early 90s, there started becoming this whole like culture mentality that we need to be more nurturing of our kids, and that kids and that things like competitive sports and whatnot. And see, this is the other thing that really just irks me. We'll get into this a little bit, but there's this mentality out there now that competitive sports is bad for kids and competition is bad for young kids. And I don't know how that started, but basically, here's the whole uh, here's the whole like trophy. Here's the trophy generation syndrome. Basically, here's what happens nowadays. And it's been like this since the early 90s. Some kid, let me just use sports as an example. But, right, you're playing football, and I've actually seen this happen. You're playing football, and there's that one kid who wants to play football, right? But let's face it, that one kid, he sucks. He throws like a girl if he even knows how to throw football at all. And he really wants to play football, but he's just no good at it. And people say, no, you can't play on our team because you're not a very good player. Now, folks, this is actually a real life scenario from my life, right? So, partially of what I'm telling you actually happened to me. Now, I wasn't that kid, but I knew the little prick. Actually, it was a she, so I knew the little I'm not gonna say her name, but I knew the little bitch who uh, had this mentality, and this was a girl who wanted to be like, she wanted to play football, and she couldn't play football. I mean, it was an all guys team, and we just didn't want her in our football group. So the teacher complained. So she went and complained to the teacher, and then the teacher made us. The teacher made us let her in, which really ticked me off to begin with. Because see, that's the other thing now too. You have to include everyone in your social groups now. Having having different social groups is bad. So anyway, this girl gets into our group. Uh, you know, against what we want. Now keep in mind this is back in elementary school, but still, this just really irks me. Um, and so we're playing football, and we stick her on a team. Um, we stick her on like one of the on like our opposing teams, and the opposing team, like who's not very happy about it, decides to take her anyway because what the hell, one of us has to take her, right? So we're playing um we're playing football, and we're all throwing the we're throwing, and everyone's playing, and at one point, like, she wants someone to throw the ball to her. She wants one of her teammates to throw the ball to her. But she's not open, she's not in a position. She's actually in a position where if we throw the ball to her, she's going to get tackled and she'll fumble because she doesn't know how to grab a football, and then the opposing team will have the ball, right? So people are like, I'm sorry, we can't throw the ball. You're not open. And she's like, I want the ball. No, we're not gonna give it to you. You're not open. I want the ball. You're not open. I want the ball, or I'm gonna tell the teacher. You're not getting the ball. Fine, I'm going to go tell the teacher. The next thing we know, she storms off. She goes and tells a teacher about what happened, and this girl can also produce massive crocodile tears. Like, Miss So and So, Sam Whitfield and his group of friends they won't. I asked them nicely to throw the football to me, and they wouldn't do it because they're a mean bunch of boys, and they don't like me because I'm a girl. So, so the teacher or the recess per- person or whatever the hell she is, she comes over and breaks the game up. And then like that's not the worst part of it. So we all get in trouble for not including her in the game. But then, believe it or not, then this comes up at like then they have an assembly about this for the entire fourth grade class at the time. And this becomes like this is where the trophy generation mentality really irks me. The school psychologist comes in and says something like, well, everyone should get a chance to have the football. We want people to feel included in this society or in this school. this school is a safe haven for everyone. Everyone should feel included and special, and I don't know why you boys were so mean to her. You should have just thrown her the football. And honestly, folks, I people are probably glad I didn't know any swear words at that point, because I would have cursed this teacher out, the psychologist out. But see, that's his whole mentality of everyone needs to feel special. Everyone needs to feel. Andrew, what do you make of this story? I'm just curious. What do people in the chat room make of my story? Because see, to me, this now see, that's just one example, but see, there's this whole mentality now of everyone needs to be included in everything that we're doing. Because we're all so sensitive. Oh, Andrew, that's priceless. Yeah, well, oh, that's another thing, Andrew. You actually you just added like a whole you added just like a whole thing of this. You're right. This is the Barney talk, and what Andrew is referring to. He and I have talked a little about this before. I forgot about this conversation, but what Andrew and I are both referring to is there's also this component uh of the trophy generation syndrome called Barney talk, where everyone is sweet talked, where all these kids are like sweet talked into thinking that they're all special, and I mean it's just like in this voice. Oh, everyone needs to football. Everyone's special. I mean, it's exactly like the Barney TV show. By the way, how many times have the Barney actors been busted for pedophilia and stuff like that? I'm just asking. Seriously, that's the seriously though, this whole sweet talk mentality of everyone deserves a chance to have the football. So basically like I guess here's what it boils down to. So in the trophy generation syndrome, along with the Barney talk and whatnot, um, oh really, oh really, well that's creepy. Andrew says the actor, the actor in the Barney suit was a woman. Well, then that makes her an actress or whatever. But yeah, I get your point, and that doesn't make Barney any less creepy though. Uh, anyway though, um, oh my God, we're having way too much fun here, folks. Um, anyway, this whole there's this whole mentality of competition is bad, and that's basically where the trophy syndrome comes in. Is our generation has grown up thinking that competition is bad or that competition is mean, and like that being a loser, well, no one should be made to feel like a loser. And see, like, that's the, and see, like, I guess here's the logic behind the whole trophy syndrome thing, right? here here's what it boils down to. In terms of competitive sports, right? No one likes to be on the losing team. That's just human nature. Nobody likes to be on the losing team. And so back in the old days, when if you were like a kid's basketball game, or a kid's baseball game, like the way my uncles remember it and the way my dad remembers it is right. If you were at your little league game back in the 50s or the 60s and you lost, obviously the team felt bad and obviously the team moped around a little bit. But you know what? Your little league coach gave you a kick in the ass and said, or no, not necessarily a kick in the ass, not always, but the coach usually gave like some pep talk saying, "Hey guys, we lost today, but that means we need to spend more time in the batting cage, or throwing pitches or whatever, and we're going to get better, and then next week, we'll beat the team next week." And so then the team would train hard and, work their butts off. And then they'd work hard and, you know, and then, and sometimes they would bust their butts. And, sometimes they would play hard, and then sometimes, they would still lose. But then they would just keep, playing hard and training hard. And being a loser does suck for the losing team, but it's just part of sports. At least that's how it used to be. Now we've grown up in a society where the Woodstock freaks are now in positions of like psychological power, and they've come up with these. Sorry, I'm gonna have to get the believer here. They've come out with these bull reports that being part of the losing team causes psychological damage to our children. Being part of the losing team causes psychological damage to our children, and now team sports is bad. And I mean, one of the most ridiculous things that I've ever heard of, and I actually, the first time I heard about this was like 2 years ago when they did like an episode of The Simpsons on this. But it's this whole mentality of like little league teams not keeping score, or junior basketball teams not keeping score. Have you guys heard about this? My generation, when I was in school, I remember this happening. Like it was being thrown around, but by the time I was out of elementary school, it never happened. So, but now there's this whole like mentality of, well, if we don't keep score of the games, then it'll take the hurt out of. Then no kid will get their feelings hurt, and everyone will feel great about themselves, and it's a win-win. But let's be honest, folks. Kids keep score anyway. Right, there's a joke in The Simpsons where there's like the scene in The Simpsons where they do that, and like I forget the episode, but like Bart joins one of those little league teams that doesn't keep score, and the coach, I think Skinner is the coach, or one of them is like the coach, and he's like, "Now remember, guys, don't keep score, just go out there and have fun." And so Bart's like really good at baseball, and he keeps like getting all these home runs, and you know he's like, "Ha, we're beating you," and one of the kids like, well, we're not keeping score, and like Millhouse, or one of Bart's friends, says, "Oh yeah, We totally are. It's like 6-0 right now, and we're kicking your butts. And like I'll have to see if I can find that episode. Um, but really, I mean, like that's and like the coach's Skinner like says something like along the lines of no one can keep score and like uh um oh Andrew, you should be a stand-up comedian, but Andrew, I'm gonna have to keep the chat room closed or like not check the chats for a while. But Andrew just cracked me up. Another scenario he did was like a Barney Kids race, and it's like who won kids, and I guess they're all like we're all winners. I mean that's mentality. There's no competition at all whatsoever in kids sports. So, okay, so this crap begins in elementary school, like Little League sports, right? And then in middle school and high school, it continues in, like, drama and whatnot, right? Don't get me started on drama kids, and don't get me started on the fine arts kids and how much and how much the fine arts programs tick me off. Especially since I hate to say this, but the gay community has really hijacked middle school and high school performing arts now. Um, I mean the arts has gotten ridiculous, but like in the case of the arts, right? You used to have to try out for the school play, and you would have to like work on your acting skills, or you weren't gonna make it in. And so that's another scenario now. Now, even if you're a terrible actor, they'll put you in. Um, and oh yes, thank you, Michael. Michael, I do need to bleep myself a little bit. Folks, I'm now. See, that's interesting. We have someone in the UK called the Jedi Galaxy. Um, Now, see, I'm curious because I honestly do think that this is an American thing. So, like, I'm gonna ask you a couple questions. Okay, I'll read this, but the Jedi says, Is this a U.S. thing? Because in the UK, kids are very competitive and fight to win. Um, I think it is quite honestly because like obviously obviously that there are things like socialism in the UK that I don't agree with, but one thing that I do agree with is like the British, even the proper ones. Well, let me ask you something. Uh, did your parents like coddle you when you were a kid? Um, I'm talking to the Jedi. I mean, I honestly now I do think it is a U.S. thing because like I said, the Woodstock freaks are the one who came up with the whole trophy syndrome mentality. And so basically, like, here's the bottom line. So we've eliminated the competition thing. Everyone is special. And, right, one of the things that really annoys me is everyone now gets a trophy for just participating in an event. Everyone get everyone here in America, all the American kids, like, ever since the 90s, right? Everyone in a sports event now, like, even if you get 12, I mean, there are kids here now in the U.S. who get trophies for 12th place in a race. And hell, there used to be a time where you wouldn't even get trophies if you made 4th. 3rd place was the cutoff for trophies. And even if you got a trophy for 3rd place, most parents were like, why didn't you get the 2nd and 1st place trophy? Now, obviously, I do understand that, that there was a time here in America where like the parents were hell-bent on sports, and I know that there were some parents who would beat their kids if they didn't get 1st place. I'm not saying that kids need to be that competitive where they go and kill each other for 1st place. But it's like we've taken this whole 180 approach. We've gone from one extreme, which is you're gonna win no matter what, to where sports isn't fun. That used to be the mentality. To where now we're like, we're all gonna have fun, but because no one's gonna win. I'm the guy who thinks, you know what, we're gonna have fun, but there is gonna be a healthy dose of competition here too. That's my theory on how things should be run. But this whole mentality of coddling your kids and everyone's special and everyone's equal, it causes problems because then you get into because then here's the other thing, and they've done studies about this too. When these kids who get trophies, when they get into high school, Andrew brings up a good point. When no one wins, you're all losers. Well, and that's the generation we've created, folks. I mean, not all of us are losers, but those of us who have a competitive mentality still, like me, and who have a good work ethic, we're the ones who aren't screwed up in this generation. But see, here's the other thing too. None of these trophy kids can take criticism, right? Another scenario. Right? I know so many kids in my school during high school who they would write alright, let's face it, all of us in high school have pulled all-nighters once or twice. Well, and probably for some of us more often than not, right? Right, let's take this into the classroom settings, shall we? So, right, teacher will assign a midterm paper that's really challenging, right? And the kids write their midterm papers, and some of them are the losers in the classroom who don't pay attention in class and who wait till the last possible minute to write the frickin' paper. And then they expect to get an A. But then when they get the paper back and it's only a D or an F, then they get super upset because they worked all night on their papers. When in reality they should have been working on it, 2 weeks before the date or whenever it was due. And then these kids are, when they get bad grades back from the teacher, then they blame it on the teachers, and they say, And like, here's a dialogue from a kid I knew. They were like, oh, some of these kids are like, what the man? That teacher, she gave me a F on this assignment, and I worked my off on this assignment. And I said, and like I said to this guy, well, when did you write the paper? Well, I wrote it like 2 nights before, but still, I worked my on this paper. And I said to this kid, well, instead of complaining about the teacher, why don't you read the comments? Oh, this teacher me. She absolutely hates me. She wants to, in the, I mean, that's how some of the kids in my school were when they got bad grades on papers. It was all the teacher's fault. Now, granted, there have been teachers I've had who have genuinely hated me. I felt like, mostly because they're liberal and I'm conservative, and they've made my life hell. Or they did when I was in high school. But, I survived their classes, and one of the things that I was taught from a very young age by my parents were that criticism is not always bad. And in fact, sometimes it's good. Anyway, folks, I've got to take a quick break here. We'll be right back. I'm going to continue my analysis of the the trophy generation syndrome. We're gonna get into the college era and what's happening now, because this is really unbelievable. Be right back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to the Whitfield Analysis. I probably have the best bumper music ever. Alright, folks, Sam Whitfield here, dragging you along for this 2-hour ride. But it's a fun 2-hour ride, nevertheless. I hope you guys are enjoying yourselves. So we've talked about how the trophy generation in elementary school screws our kids up. And I'll tell you why it screws our kids up. Because like from the time in elementary school when all this, mollycoddling stuff happens, they don't get the concept of competition. They don't get the concept of competition at all, and that in real life competition works. And so that in real life, America's a competitive society. They don't understand that. So then in high school they get upset with their teachers. And then in college, now see, here's the other thing. The left, the Woodstock freaks, have infiltrated our college campuses too. And so these kids already grow up thinking that they're entitled because they've grown up with trophy syndrome mentality. And so they think they're entitled. They think that everything in the world should be fluffy and rainbowish and everything else. And so then they're taught, that America is unfair, and they think that, they're being taught that we're the worst country in the world and whatnot. So they grow up with the mentality, and then they're taught in college that we're the worst country in the world. And then you have Occupy Wall Street, folks. Then you get into the Occupy Wall Street mentality. So then these kids go off into and they decide whatever their major be. Most of my generation has gone into business. And so, right, my generation, most of us have gone to college and gotten indoctrinated. Well, and when I say we, I'm excluding the listeners of this program because you're obviously too smart. But our generation goes to college. We've gotten indoctrinated. We have the trophy mentality of we're so awesome, but everyone else, the older generations, suck. And that's the way we graduate college. So mentally, our generation is screwed up that way. Then here's what happens. Are you ready for this? Then, because we have a degree, we've been taught. See, here's the other big myth about college, right? And here's the other thing. Now, I'm not trying to bash college counselors or anything, but in high school, right? In high school, all of the high school, like, grad counselors make this whole big deal about my God, I was hammered with this crap from, day one of freshman orientation. Right? We've grown up in this whole false narrative that if you go to college and you graduate, you're going to get like an instant key to the world. And the world is going to be your oyster. They don't talk about how hard you have to work. So basically, we grow up with this whole mentality that everything's hunky-dory and we live in this snow globe society and everyone is equal and everyone needs to be nice to each other and everyone needs to be accepted. That's the Barney mentality that Andrew was talking about. So we grow up with the Barney mentality, and then we're indoctrinated with the college mentality. And the Barney mentality and the college mentality is, if you go to college, you'll be successful instantly, and you'll have the key to the world. So, right, so you go to college and you graduate. Then there's this something called the world, the real world. And it's time for these college graduates to get jobs. So they go into the real world and they start applying for jobs. But they're horrible interviewers, and they have a self. You see, a lot of these kids have like a really cocky mentality of, I'm the best at what I do because I grew up in the most awesome generation ever, and we're the owners of the world already. We're only 18, but we own the world. And so they come into the job interview with that attitude, and they come into the job thinking that their college degree earns them a seat at the head of the table. And just like Adam Carolla said, these kids kick up their feet on their desks, and the job interviewer is like, "What are you doing? Get your feet off get your effing feet off my desk." And so they get rejected for the job interview. They don't interview very well, and so they get rejected. They go again for other interviewer views, and they keep getting rejected because they've lived in this false net all their lives, right? And then that's when Occupy Wall Street starts. Then it's no longer. And see, none of these kids have also. And see, here's the other big problem. None of these kids, or very few of these kids, I should say, have been taught what self-examination means. About looking inward and looking at your personal flaws. Lots of these kids think that they're perfect or pretty damn near close to it. And so, rather than looking inward and saying, hey man, maybe I've got problems, do they do that at all? No. They immediately say, the job interviewer, they don't know what they're talking about. I'm the best at what I do. I own this world. I'm a badass. I'm a badass mother. And I completely deserve what's in the establishment. They're up. And I mean, it's just. And then they start throwing bricks at the window and whatnot. Now that's the population of this self-entitled generation that doesn't get hired. Now here's what happens to the generation that does get hired into corporate America. And I'm talking about the ones that don't make it, right? The ones in my generation who don't make it and who make it into corporate America but still have the whiny mentality attitude. They screw off on their computers all day. They come into work late. They don't respect their boss. But when their boss does criticize them, they have nervous breakdowns because their boss is quote unquote offending them. And they cause big ruckus because they've grown up with the child, with like the trophy child syndrome mentality. And they're just irresponsible and everything, and they don't know how to act. And then they get fired, and then they go up and join Occupy. So, I know that was a long-winded explanation. I know I took about like a whole hour to explain that. But do you see the whole problem? Do you see the whole problem with this, folks? And then they go and start hurting other people, which which I'll get back to after this commercial break. I'm going to take one last commercial break, folks, because Occupy, the reason I'm going into this is I have a feeling we're going to see their emergence. And I'll explain why after this break. Stay tuned. Our friend the Jedi from across the pond in the UK. Honestly, I've never been able to tell. I've never actually been able to talk to someone from across the pond. But I have to say, I think that your guys' music is awesome. Um, I'm pretty sure that you know who that I'm hoping you know who that was in the last bumper. Well, I know Dire Straits is. I know Mark Knopfler's Scottish, but still. Um, anyway, I love you guys' music. I think I think the Jedi is from across the pond in the UK. Um, anyway, where was I? Oh yes. So I just talked the Occupy Wall Street mentality and how they and so now I'm at the point where I just discussed how their bosses don't even like them, and so they decide to throw bricks and whatnot in people's windows and cause chaos. So, oh, but by the way, I'm sure you get this a lot, but uh, the British invasion in terms of the rock bands, that's my music, buddy. Even though it's like from the '60s, '70s, and '80s, you guys really have it down in terms of rock and roll. Just thought I'd give you that compliment, Jedi. Anyway, so now that all the Occupy kids get fired from their jobs, now they decide to go cause chaos. And I I have a I actually have an article that I want to read because Occupy Wall Street is actually violent, folks. Uh, and so this article I actually have is from CNS News, and I read this article 2 years ago uh, when I was still on Blog Talk Radio. But the headline of this article is Occupy DC protesters uh, harass and heckle wheelchair-bound women. All right. When when Occupy DC protesters stormed the Washington Convention Center on November 4th to disrupt an Americans for Prosperity event, they blocked numerous exit doors and prevented Melissa Ortiz, wheelchair-bound with a service dog in her lap, from exiting the building. They also repeatedly harassed, heckled, and mocked her, she told CNS News. Ortiz is a volunteer for the conservative Americans for Prosperity group. The organization held its Defending the American Dream Summit at the DC Convention Center on November 4th through the 5th. Ortiz, who has a congenital neurological malformation and is wheelchair bound, was on her way out of the convention center around 10 p.m. to take her service dog for a walk when the protesters approached the building. They kept yelling, "We are the 99%," Ortiz told CNSNews.com. The security guard said to me, "We really don't want you to leave this building." They were across the street and they looked like angry dogs straining at the leash wanting to go hunting, recounted Ortiz. The tension and the anger was palpable. When it came time to leave, they, the security convention personnel, pulled me aside and they said, "You're not going to be able to leave the building yet because all of the wheelchair accessible entrances are blocked," she said. There was just this mass of protesters, and they were yelling and saying things like, "These people don't care about you. You should come out here and be with us. We care about people with disabilities. We care about the fact that you need to be taken care of," which flies in the face of everything I'm about, said Ortiz. Now, Andrew, are you still here? Let me read this paragraph to you. Oh yeah, you are still here, I think. Now, Andrew and Michael, this may come as a bit of a surprise to you. I think I've told you this, but ladies and gentlemen, I myself am quote unquote handicapped. I am in a wheelchair. I am in a wheelchair, and I know a lot of you didn't know that up until now, but this really frosts my cookies on a personal level, and I'll explain why. But anyway, back to the article. So the protesters say, so back to the paragraph. There was just a mass of protesters, and they were yelling and saying things like, "These people don't care about you. You should come out here and be with us. We care about people with disabilities. We care about the fact that you need to be taken care of," which flies in the face of everything I'm about, said Ortiz. Classic liberals mentality, folks, that people with disabilities need to be taken care of. I, for one, am pretty damn independent. That's another reason why the whole trophy kid mentality pisses me off, because I've had to work for everything that I've had to do. I had to actually work when I was very young to learn how to talk, because the doctors told my parents that I would never be able to talk, and I'd never be able to walk or do anything. And yet God has healed me. And I think the last 2 hours have pretty much proven that. That I can talk. So, anyway, next paragraph. "I don't want to be taken care of," she said. "I want to get the government out of my way and let me make my way." Ortiz said she initially tried to leave by pushing through the door with her wheelchair, but when she got partway through, protesters grabbed her dog, which was attached to her with a harness and leash, and they tried to pull Ortiz out of the wheelchair. At this point, Ortiz used her electric wheelchair to back up into the center, and security personnel promptly locked the doors. "But we couldn't get out either," she said. "If there had been a fire, people would have died that night simply because of the selfishness and child behavior of some 300 people. You know, you have to love the irony, folks. These people say that they care about handicapped people, but yet they want to take care of handicapped people instead of letting us, and I'm speaking for the population of people in wheelchairs, instead of letting us be independent. See, there's a lot of us out there who are in wheelchairs who are conservative because we're pissed off that the government wants to take care of us instead of letting us be independent and take care of ourselves. I may be handicapped, but I'm not helpless, folks. Anyway. Ortiz said she called 911 to help her get out of the building, but the police operators hung up on her. The police had no intention of helping, she said. Eventually, to get out of the building, AF Americans for Prosperity supporters had to form a human chain, said Ortiz, and surround her to get her down a wheelchair ramp and out onto the street, where they also escorted her back to her hotel, a little more than 1 mile away. Nicole Keating, a state policy analyst with Americans for Prosperity, who helped Ortiz to escape the building, told CNS News one of the individuals that was there trying to talk to the protesters through the door, will you let her out this door? Why won't you let her out this door? And they started chanting back at us. They said, this is what democracy looks like, which I thought was a bit ironic. What ended up having to happen is that the conference attendees had to lock arms and line up on the ramp on either side for me to get down, said Ortiz. And even then, I was heckled, yelled at. I was followed all the way back to my hotel and into the lobby of the hotel. Keating said protesters continued taunting, yelling, and screaming at the small group of people that helped push Ortiz through the crowd into the Renaissance Hotel. Keating and two other Americans for Prosperity activists, Andrea McCarthy and Robert Langworthy, escorted Ortiz into the hotel. Keating confirmed to CNS News that throughout the walk to the hotel, protesters followed them and repeatedly yelled and made comments to Ortiz. Ortiz said that en route, the people escorting her, were yelled at and spit upon by protesters. At one point, Ortiz stopped and asked one of the female protesters why she did not go and get a job. The woman reportedly said, there aren't any jobs. When Ortiz said yes there were, and to go look in the help wanted pages of the newspaper, the woman said, oh, those jobs are beneath me. Then it became clear to me in that moment what this is all about, said Ortiz. It is a mindset issue. It isn't that people's rights are being violated, it is that they have the mindset that they are entitled to something simply because they graduated from college in the United States of America. And folks, that right there is what I've been talking about for the last 2 hours. And they couldn't be farther from the truth, said Ortiz. This is the land of opportunity. That you create your activity, that you create your opportunity, and that you work to make that dream come true. Equal access does not guarantee equal outcome. On the way to the hotel, protesters called and yelled to Ortiz. You're a scumbag. You're a dirtbag. You're a douche. You're nasty. You're probably not even crippled. Things like that, she told CNS News. And the F word was tossed around a lot. Folks, this is incredible. Once she and her friends had arrived at the Renaissance Hotel, the security personnel there stopped the protesters, according to Ortiz. Keating said the hotel security people ran out of the hotel lobby trying to prevent Occupy DC protesters who had migrated to that area from entering. Alright, and the rest of the video is just about what the about the Occupy DC movement and what they're all about. So anyway, the reason I bring that article up to you is I have a clip from Melissa Ortiz. She recorded this on YouTube and put this up about 2 years ago. As I said, this article, I read this about 2 years ago. And I want to know what you guys think of this. This really sickens me, and But I think this clip basically demonstrates what the Occupy movement is all about. So let's take a listen to this, and then we'll wrap up the program. Folks, this is what the last 20 years of the entitlement trophy child mentality has gotten us. It's gotten us Occupy Wall Street the most. It's gotten us this group of crazy anarchists who were protected as children and told that they were special, and all throughout their lives were told that they were entitled to whatever the hell they wanted. And folks, I guarantee you that when the left needs them, they will probably merge 2 years. They will probably merge like a year and a half from now again. There's still an active group protesting corporations, and it's sad. They have nothing better to do. Michael, what are you referring to? It was kind of a. What do you mean from 1993? I'm not really. That was kind of. Are you asking me a question, or I wish there was some sort of notification. I can't tell if you're typing or uh okay, anyway, I guess basically the point here is the um yeah. Oh, yeah, okay, now I get what you're saying. So for the last 20 years, probably actually 25 since it started in the 80s probably. So it's the whole generation of mollycoddling these kids for the last 20 to 25 years. And I know the mollycoddling has been going on longer than that, but I mean, I think the generation that was born from like 1988 to 97, which would be my generation. I mean, this is really who the childlike mentality is, what the trophy child mentality is affecting now. And so they're angry and they're destructive, and it's just utter chaos. Um, there's no other way to state it. They are completely just ignorant of what's going on, and it's really sad. It really, truly is. And they're going to be back, I think. Or rather, Obama's going to bring them back. Um, and so we've still got like a whole bunch more to cover, folks, but we've got like a whole bunch of topics to cover tomorrow. I'm going to cover the Verizon wireless thing tomorrow, and we've still got a lot to cover this weekend, but folks, I just want to do this special on Occupy Wall Street and whatnot. So, folks, until tomorrow evening, have a good night. God bless. I promise you my show tomorrow will be a lot shorter. And until then, good night, God bless, and God bless America. I'll see you tomorrow evening.